My name is Elaine. The courtroom was filled with the musty smell of old paper and the faint aroma of stale coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed above, casting a dull, unforgiving glow on everyone. I sat beside my sister, Olivia, on a narrow wooden bench, my hands folded in my lap. I was calm, not because I wasn't nervous, but because I'd already endured the worst: the shock, the betrayal, the realization that the person I trusted could lie about me without a second thought. Across the room, Nathan arrived 10 minutes late. He was wearing a poorly fitting black suit, looking like he'd either borrowed it or bought it in a rush. Beside him was his lawyer, Victor Harris, with an expensive haircut and perfect teeth, the kind of man who oozed confidence and charged by the hour. Victor stood up first. He launched into a polished speech, calling me vindictive and calculated, accusing me of hiding assets to financially harm Nathan. He painted Nathan as an emotionally vulnerable man who'd sacrificed his career to support mine, blindsided by a woman who'd weaponized her financial knowledge. I watched Nathan out of the corner of my eye. He nodded at the right moments and lowered his gaze when emotional abuse was mentioned. He was playing his part well. Then Victor dropped the bombshell. My client was afraid, he told the court. Afraid not only of losing everything he helped build, but of the woman he lived with. There are documented claims of volatility, threats, and even physical intimidation. This trust was not protection, it was punishment. When he sat down, the room felt heavier. Judge Amelia Thompson turned to Olivia. Ms. Thompson's counsel, your response. Olivia stood up, calm and composed. She reached into her folder and pulled out her phone. Your Honor, I'd like to begin by reading a message sent by Mr. Reed to my client. At 2:07 p.m. On a Wednesday afternoon, while Ms. Thompson was at work, she received this text: I'm starting the breakup process. You're holding me back from the life I deserve. This message was sent from Mr. Reed's lawyer's office, with no prior discussion or attempt at resolution. Olivia then looked directly at Nathan. Mr. Reed initiated the dissolution of this relationship unilaterally. She set the phone down and handed the judge a stack of statements. Now, let's talk about contribution. For the past 18 months, Mr. Reed's financial contribution to shared expenses was zero. My client's post-tax income during that same period was approximately $340,000. The house, the vehicles, the savings, these were all funded by Ms. Thompson's income while Mr. Reed pursued personal interests. Judge Thompson flipped through the papers slowly. Olivia continued, the trust in question was created after Mr. Reed announced the breakup, but before any legal papers were served. At that moment, Ms. Thompson was still legally free to manage her assets. Victor stood up abruptly. Objection. This is a clear attempt to circumvent. Judge Thompson raised a hand. I'll decide what it is, Mr. Harris. Her gaze returned to the documents and then to Nathan. Mr. Reed, did you send this message? Nathan's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Did you intend to end the relationship when you sent it? He hesitated. I was emotional. Yes or no? The judge said flatly. Yes, he replied. After sending this message, did you continue to use Ms. Thompson's financial resources? Nathan swallowed. Yes. The room fell silent. Judge Thompson then turned to me. Ms. Thompson, did you create this trust to hide assets from your partner? I stood up. My intention was to protect what I built from someone who chose to leave without discussion and then demanded half of everything afterward. The judge studied me for a long time. Finally, she sighed. Ms. Thompson, your timing is convenient. You moved quickly, which suggests preparation. But Mr. Reed, you can't end a relationship and then claim victimhood when the other person responds. She looked back down at the paperwork. I'm going to split the difference. The trust stands. Ms. Thompson acted within her legal rights, even if the ethics are debatable. However, Mr. Reed is entitled to compensation for his non-financial contribution to the relationship. Ms. Thompson will pay Mr. Reed a one-time settlement of $150,000. Nathan exhaled loudly, a mix of relief and disbelief. The judge added, that represents approximately 7% of the total assets in question. Given Mr. Reed's lack of financial contribution and the way he initiated this breakup, I consider this more than fair. Victor started to object again, but Judge Thompson's voice hardened. Mr. Harris, your client sent a text message accusing his partner of holding him back from the life he deserves. He is free to pursue that life, and now he has $150,000 to help him do it. She banged the gavel. The ruling stands. In the hallway outside, Nathan finally lost control. You ruined my life, he shouted, his voice cracking. That's nothing. That's nothing. Olivia stepped between us. An appeal would cost you at least $50,000, with very low odds of success. Nathan went pale. He stared at her, then at me. In that moment, I saw fear in his eyes. He finally understood that he wasn't losing me, he was losing the illusion that I would always be there to save him. It all started 5 years ago. I was 25, fresh out of college, and had just landed a junior financial analyst position at a mid-sized investment firm in New York. I met Nathan at a local coffee shop. He was 26 and worked in marketing for a small agency downtown. We were both broke, sharing a tiny studio apartment, counting every penny on groceries, and eating ramen 3 nights a week. We told ourselves it was temporary, and for a while it was. After a year, we moved in together. We talked about our future like it was a shared project, marriage, a house, and travel when we could afford it. 2 years later, we were still together, still committed. Then, my career took off. I became a senior analyst, then an associate portfolio manager, and last year, I was promoted to vice president at 29. The money started pouring in. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, cash. I paid off Nathan's car, and we started living a more luxurious lifestyle. 18 months ago, Nathan quit his job. He said the stress was killing him, that his mental health mattered more than money, and that he needed time to figure out what he really wanted to do with his life. I supported him, telling him to take his time, start a consulting business, or freelance. But he never did. Instead, he jumped from one certification course to another: life coaching, breath work training, and a photography course he swore would change everything. Each course lasted about 2 months. I didn't push him because we had the money, and I wanted him to be happy. 6 months ago, things started to change. He began criticizing everything about me: my long hours at work, my friends, and even the fact that I still drove my old paid-off Toyota while he drove the luxury BMW I bought him. You make all this money and still dress like you shop at Walmart, he once said. I do shop at Walmart. It's efficient, I replied, which only annoyed him more. You're boring, Elaine. You never want to do anything fun. All you care about is work. To him, fun meant $400 dinners and spontaneous weekends in Miami, trips I paid for while closing deals to keep our lifestyle going. 3 months ago, he started going out more: guys' nights, wellness retreats, and a weekend conference in California. When he came back, he was different: distant, restless, talking about finding himself and living authentically. He started guarding his phone, angling it away when I walked by. I asked him twice if something was going on, but he said I was being paranoid and projecting my work stress onto him, so I stopped asking. 2 weeks ago, on a Wednesday afternoon, I was in back-to-back meetings. At 2:07 p.m. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Nathan, sent from his lawyer's office. I'm starting the breakup process. You're holding me back from the life I deserve. I read it 3 times, sitting in my office with the door closed and a client portfolio open on my screen. The words didn't seem real, so I replied, understood. That night, I went home to an empty house. Nathan had taken some clothes, his laptop, and a few framed photos. He left his key on the kitchen counter, no note, no explanation. I sat at the kitchen table long after the sun went down, staring at that key like it was evidence of a crime. 6 weeks earlier, when the criticism got worse and the secrecy started, I called Olivia. She's 31, a tax attorney in Philadelphia. She'd always been wary of Nathan, not openly, but quietly. He's drifting, she told me. Drifting people tend to grab on to whoever's holding the rope. That night, after receiving the breakup text, I called her again. He did it, I said. Did what? He sent the text from a lawyer's office. There was a pause. Okay. Are you ready to move forward with what we discussed? Yes. Olivia had already explained to me the laws of a New York separation. It's a community property state, meaning anything acquired during the relationship assets, savings, property gets split 50-50ths unless there's a prenup. We didn't have one. Nathan had cried when I brought it up years ago, saying it meant I didn't trust him, so I dropped it. But Olivia drilled into me a technicality. Community property applies to assets that exist at the time of division, and Nathan hadn't served papers yet. He'd just announced his exit by text. I pulled out a notebook and started listing everything: the house, worth $1.2 million and paid off, his BMW, worth $85,000, my Toyota, worth $8,000, our checking account with $47,000, savings of $180,000, investments of $290,000, and retirement funds of $175,000, just under $2 million in total. Most of it had been earned in the last 3 years, during which I'd paid for everything while Nathan didn't work. By Friday, I'd set up an irrevocable trust, with Olivia as the trustee and me as the beneficiary. On paper, I owned nothing. The house transfer alone took days: appraisals, filings, and taxes, costing $40,000 in fees and penalties, but it was worth every cent. My Toyota, the only thing I'd owned before Nathan, was signed over entirely. The investment accounts had been quietly restructured weeks earlier. It was aggressive and barely legal. Olivia called it a gray zone with sharp edges, but Nathan had opened the door. On Saturday morning, my phone lit up with an unknown number. This is Nathan. You blocked me? Really immature. I hadn't blocked him, just muted him, and I didn't correct him. My lawyer says we need full asset disclosure by Monday. I replied, have your lawyer contact my lawyer, and sent him Olivia's firm details. There was a long pause. You got a lawyer? This was supposed to be amicable. I typed, you ended a 5-year relationship via text message. Not sure what part of that suggested amicable. On Monday, and then on Tuesday, Olivia sent all the documents: every transfer, every signature. By Wednesday morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. What did you do? You can't do this. This is fraud. I'm calling the police. I didn't respond. At 7:02 p.m. Someone started pounding on my door. I checked the camera and saw Nathan, red-faced and disheveled, yelling my name. Open the door, Elaine. I called Olivia. He's here. Do not open it. If he doesn't leave in 5 minutes, call the police, she said calmly. I sat on the couch and watched as he screamed, then cried, and finally sat down on the steps with his head in his hands. I felt nothing. After 20 minutes, he left. The next afternoon, he came back calmer. I opened the door but kept the chain on. This is insane. You can't just give everything away, he said. It's not everything. It's what I built, I replied. I'm your partner. You sent the breakup text. His voice cracked. I made a mistake. Then you should have used your words instead of legal paperwork. As the court date approached, Nathan's behavior became more erratic. He started calling from different numbers, leaving voicemails that changed tone every 20 minutes, first anger, then bargaining, and finally a soft, wounded plea. On Sunday night, I got a message from his best friend, Ryan. Hey, Nathan's spiraling. Can you just talk to him? I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Ryan wasn't a bad guy, but men like him, who stand beside men like Nathan, often think they're neutral when they're really just loyal. I didn't reply. On Monday morning, Olivia called me while I was walking into the office. They filed an emergency motion to freeze assets, reverse the transfers, and accuse you of acting in bad faith. What are our odds? I asked. Olivia gave a small sigh. It depends on the judge. Timing matters, the breakup text matters, his lack of contribution matters, and the trust is going to look suspicious, but suspicious isn't illegal. Let them argue. We'll bring receipts, I said. Olivia paused. Good, because I have a feeling Nathan isn't done embarrassing himself yet. That afternoon, I got an email from Victor requesting full discovery, 5 years of statements, deeds, titles, and transaction histories. The subject line felt like a threat. I forwarded it to Olivia, and she replied within 3 minutes, already preparing the packet. Let them see everything. At 6:48 p.m. As I was pouring a glass of water in my kitchen, the pounding started again. This time, it was louder and more frantic. I checked the camera and saw Nathan with a woman behind him. She was tall, with glossy hair, wearing a white coat and sharp heels. She looked out of place on my porch. Nathan leaned towards the camera and snarled, "Open the door." The woman behind him tilted her head and smiled slightly, like she was enjoying the show. I called Olivia. He's here again, and he brought someone. Describe her, Olivia said instantly. I did, and there was a beat of silence. Then Olivia's voice lowered. That might be his girlfriend. My chest went cold. His what? Elaine, remember the California conference? The sudden distance? The phone angle? People don't usually leave like that without somewhere to land. I stared at the screen showing Nathan's face, red with anger. The woman stepped forward, and I could read her lips, "Don't be difficult." Something in me snapped into focus. It wasn't heartbreak or jealousy, it was disgust. Nathan hadn't just tried to leave, he'd tried to replace me and brought the replacement to my doorstep. He pounded on the door again and shouted, "You think you're smart? You think you can just steal my future?" I didn't move. I watched as the woman leaned in and said something to him. He nodded and stepped back dramatically. He raised his voice so the whole street could hear. Elaine, you can't hide everything. This is fraud. You're going to get destroyed in court. I called the police. I wasn't going to let Nathan turn my home into a stage. While I waited, I sat on my couch, watching the camera feed. Nathan paced, and the woman stood with her arms crossed, looking calm and smug. Then Nathan did something that made my blood turn cold. He pointed at my door and yelled, "She hit me. She's violent. She's been threatening me for months." I understood what he was doing. He was trying to plant a narrative, to create a record in case the court didn't give him the money he wanted. He wanted to take my reputation, my career, my peace. The police arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers, a man and a woman, stepped out of the car. Nathan instantly changed his tone, slumping his shoulders and speaking in a soft, helpless voice. "I'm just trying to get my things. She's locking me out and hiding money." The female officer glanced at the door and then at the camera above it. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Ma'am, are you inside?" I stepped close to the door. "Yes. Do you feel safe?" Yes. Do you want him trespassed? The word hit the air like a gavel. Trespassed? Nathan's head snapped up. He looked at the camera in disbelief. The woman behind him rolled her eyes. Nathan lifted his hands. Come on. This is insane. I lived here. And you left. By choice, I said calmly. The male officer spoke. Sir, if your name isn't on the property and you don't have permission to be here, you need to leave. Nathan's face twisted. I'm her partner. Not legally, I said. The woman's lips pressed together. For the first time, her confidence cracked. She realized she wasn't watching a man stand up for himself, she was watching a man get removed like a problem. Nathan stepped forward again, his rage flaring. This isn't over. You're going to regret this. I didn't answer because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. He left with the officers watching, and the woman followed, her heels clicking on the sidewalk. After they disappeared, I sat back on the couch, my hands shaking. It wasn't from fear, it was from the realization that this was only the beginning. Nathan wasn't just losing money, he was losing control, and men like him don't accept loss quietly. Olivia called 10 minutes later. They served.